Boxing Truth here. David Lemieux, after missing weight for his scheduled fight with James De La Rosa last week, has earned himself an even bigger opportunity, as he will be the co-feature bout, as he will take on Glenn Tapia on the Khanelo undercard as the co-featured bout of that card. Now, that fight is a good opportunity for Lemieux, also for Glenn Tapia, after going 10 months without a fight ever since he got stopped by Michael Soro of France. In his last fight, he got stopped in 4 rounds, and he was on the shelf ever since. He was guided by Top Rank for the majority of his career, and Top Rank has been releasing fighters, a lot of fighters lately, and they just released Glenn Tapia from his contract last week after they couldn't get any fights for him or get him back back into title contention like they wanted to. But now Glenn Tapia is no longer on the shelf. He can move on with his career. He's been training for the past 10 months, according to him, dying to get back in the ring and show the boxing fans that he still has some left. David Lemieux, he's still been inactive since getting outboxed and beaten down by Golovkin in his last fight in the unification bout. Lemieux has, prior to the Golovkin loss, was on a run, was looking very good in fights, was recording good knockouts, good performances, seemed to have improved as a fighter. He definitely has, from what I saw before the Golovkin fight. When he was coming up as a prospect, he was knocking a lot of guys out, but I wasn't really impressed with his conditioning, and that's another thing. He wasn't being tested by these guys. Wasn't being taken deep into the deep waters, and that happened in his fight against Rubio. He started out well, was explosive for the first few rounds, was on the verge of perhaps stopping Rubio. But then Rubio toughed it out. He took all his shots, was able to weather the storm by Lemieux. And he ended up gassing Lemieux out. Lemieux was dead tired in that fight. Ended up getting stopped because he was simply just not in condition to go on. And Lemieux learned something from that fight, that it takes more than just punching power to become a world champion. It's true. You can be the hardest puncher in boxing, but it just takes more than just punching power. You got to have conditioning. You got to have reflexes. You got to be able to place your punches. You got to be accurate. I mean, it takes more than just punching power. Ernie Shavers, the heavyweight contender in the 70s, according to Ali, he was the hardest puncher ever that he ever got hit by, but yet Ernie Shavers never won a world title. Just goes to show you that it just takes more than just being explosive and punching power. You gotta be able to place the punches, you gotta be able to time your opponent, be smart with your selection of punches. You also have to you also have to land those shots. In Lemieux, well, he learned from that loss to Rubio and also the loss to a Klein. He lost back-to-back fights, pretty much almost derailing his career, but really slowed it down, really. But he learned that he had to be in better shape, and he did that. He showed in fights against Hassan Nadam and also against Gabriel Rosado that he got into better shape. Not only was he hurting these guys, he was able to hurt these guys later in fights and able to not get frustrated when he was unable to stop Nadam, but he was able to continue to keep up the pace and continue landing big shots. And against Rosado, that was probably one of his best performances. He put the work in the gym. He hurt Rosado early on, broke his his eye socket, I believe. He really severely injured it, and he was able to stop him later in the fight. Impressive performance. However, he was in another level against Golovkin, and it showed. He just couldn't. He just wasn't on his level. Kept getting marked up by the jab, getting his head snapped back, and he just couldn't get inside on Golovkin's wheelhouse to land his big shots. Golovkin just kept offsetting his momentum with his strong jab, and that jab was what won him the fight. I mean, from the very first round, that was the game plan. Just pop Lemieux up with jabs. He couldn't get away from it. Now Lemieux is back in the mix. He's got himself a very winnable fight against an opponent that's gonna come bring it to him. It'll be a good action fight. That's been Golden Boy's mission for this undercard. They want to put on some action fights. Overall, it's a pretty good undercard. David Lemieux against Tapia. That will be a good fight for however long it lasts. Frankie Gomez against Herrera. Solid. Just Frankie Gomez, the guy just doesn't. He has no identity. Does he want to be a junior welterweight? Does he want to be a welterweight? Also, Patrick Teixeira against Curtis Stevens. I also thought Luis Ortiz is going to be on the card. That still remains to be seen. The only concern for Lemieux is that he has to make weight. He's got to make weight for this fight. Glenn Tapia has been a career 154-pounder, but he claims that he struggled mightily his last fight against Sorrow to make the weight. So now he's taking the jump up to middleweight at 160 pounds to test the waters at middleweight, and he's got himself a tough opponent for his first fight at middleweight, a top 10 fighter at middleweight who can punch, who has improved, who's in better condition. However, Lemieux is definitely struggling to make middleweight. He's a big middleweight. He outweighed Golovkin in their fight, and he's a guy that has to really boil it down to make 160. It's not an easy weight for him to make. And he came in at 166 against De La Rosa. De La Rosa's management team, they were a little too careful. I mean, they could have perhaps just took the fight, but they didn't want to. They turned the fight down and turned down $50K. I mean, $50K for fighters like De La Rosa don't come out of the woodwork. I mean, those type of paydays don't come on a consistent basis. I mean, 2-3 pounds. Maybe they should have just took the fight, but they didn't. And now Lemieux is on to a better opportunity on a co-feature on a pay-per-view card in Las Vegas. But Lemieux, the fight is contracted at 160 pounds, so that's the only concern. Can Lemieux make the middleweight limit? Couldn't even make 163 for the contracted bout with De La Rosa. But it's a good fight for David Lemieux. It's a very winnable fight, a fight to get him back in the win column. I favor him to beat Glenn Tapia. Tapia, every time he's stepped up, he's lost. He's an action fighter, a good fighter to watch in action fights, but first fight at middleweight, maybe the weight will make a difference. Maybe he'll be fresher, maybe he'll be more energetic. But Lemieux will definitely be the favorite, as he's more experienced. He's fought better opposition, and he's been a world champion. Glenn Tapia has yet to have beaten a contender in his career, or a top 10 fighter. Every top opponent he's faced, or every step up opponent he's faced, he's lost. So good little action fight between the two guys. Tapia is getting an opportunity, his biggest opportunity yet. Top Rank decided to part ways. They couldn't get him anything else. And now Tapia has signed with Golden Boy, and now he's in a good opportunity against David Lemieux, but Lemieux should definitely be the favorite in this fight. This is Boxing Truth. I'm out.